Hi everybody, Daniel Spatz from California. Daniel Spatz interviews in English today again. So get ready to learn some English, guys, in Latin America. I did it, I did my homework. So I'm waiting for my guest. We're gonna have a test with my guest, Sally Sullivan. She is a lawyer, former sports lawyer. Hi guys, hola a todos. Hoy va a ser en inglés. Let me see, Claudio, un abrazo, Claudio, going, Los Pinos. Yeah, it's going to be a very good interview. She's trying to figure it out how to use the interview, the Instagram. So I will be, oh, she's there. You're there. I'm going to receive you, Sally. So stay tuned. I'm going to send you the invitation. And we can start. There you go. We can start the live right now. Yeah, ahead of time. There you go. Gonna take off earlier. Perfect. Just accept my invitation. And yeah, just press accept, I guess. We're gonna be live soon. Talk about very nice story with Sally. I hope she will join us very soon. Oh, there you go, Sally. We did it.
How'd I do?
Now just try to put your camera a little bit lower so I can see your face better. Okay. Oh, fantastic. There you go. Can you see me well?
I can see you. Yes. Woo! How are you?
Thank you. Let's start right now. It's even better. Thank you very much.
Sure.
You see, don't you think? Oh, the phone you have
I got you.
Yeah, keep the phone. Yeah, still. Don't you think, Sally, that this internet media are the craziest creation in the last, I don't know, what for, according to you, the biggest change that happens in the world in the last 40, 50 years?
Yeah, for sure.
But what do you think about it?
Well, I'm really techie, so I love all this stuff. So I think, nothing intimidates me. It's just figuring it out. I really like it. So
excellent. Sally, first of all, thank you once again accepting the invitation. But I want to say thanks to Rafael Fondemora. He made it possible. So please, I just had a beautiful interview 2 weeks ago with him. We have a big audience, so please talk about your relationship with Rafael.
I met Rafael, gosh, maybe 25 years ago. And I don't know how, but I ended up in Arizona. He picked me up at the crack of dawn in his Boxster Porsche. And we're blowing up the hill. And I'm thinking, my friends aren't going to believe this. I'm here with this gorgeous Spanish guy. And we just hit it off immediately. We have a lot in common with how we teach, although he's incredible. I taught in his clinics with him. And at one time entertained the idea of maybe working for him. But we just, it was one of those relationships where we connected very quickly. And I think it's because we're both pretty straightforward. We're both pretty passionate about tennis and life. And I just, he's become a very dear friend. He really has.
Wow. And your life is amazing. I was reading all you sent me. And you started in Connecticut. So are you from Connecticut? You were born in Connecticut?
I was born in Hartford, Connecticut. And so were my two children. Both my kids were born there as well. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And your dad, I said he put you in tennis very little, right?
Well, my dad was an incredible athlete himself. He was a natural athlete. He was a semi-professional soccer player on a Swedish team. My maiden name was Gustafsson, and my dad played for a Swedish team. And my dad got me into all these sports because he saw when I was little how agile I was. And I played everything. I made midget football. My brothers didn't. I made baseball. My brothers didn't. And then we played tennis, and I just loved tennis. We also played golf. He wanted me to be a professional golfer. And I just said, Dad, that's not enough exercise for me. So he was everything about getting me into the sport. He entered me into
Sorry. How about your mom?
My mom was she wasn't athletic as much as she was a great dancer. She was extraordinary person in terms of helping people, and she was like my best friend. My mother was. And I was very lucky, Danny, that I had great parents. I did. And I think that has a lot to do with kind of how I look at life and how I approach life, is how I was raised by those two people. So,
And
yeah.
brothers, sisters?
I have two brothers. I have an older brother, Peter, and a younger brother, Bruce. I'm the middle child. And as you would expect, you would think maybe the middle child would get lost in this, in the fray of things. And I was kind of the going and blowing kid. I was the one that was always into things and got into tennis. I won a women's tennis tournament when I was 9. And this guy saw me play and introduced me to Eddie Reed, who, if you look him up, was called the coach. And he was amazing. And he was the one that introduced me to the tennis world. I think I told you,
Yes.
I was fortunate to practice with Shirley Fry Irvin, who's won Wimbledon and the U.S. Open, and Lois Felix, who was in the top 10, and Mercer Beasley, a famous coach, and Doris Hart was the one that had kind of leg. These are all amazing, and I played with them all the time as a little kid. Shirley just passed away this summer. I was sad that I hadn't connected with her. But yeah, Eddie was the one that really got me into it. And so I very quickly went out and played on the national circuit and suddenly was hanging out with Billie Jean Moffitt and Rosie Casals and, you know.
Have you played against Billie Jean?
Oh, I grew up with Billie Jean. Yeah. Billie Jean.
Have you lately been in touch with her? Or?
Yeah, Billie Jean and I have a strange relationship. She was she's one age group ahead of me, but I was such a fan because I knew she was going to be great. I'll tell you a really good story about Billie Jean that I loved is that I used to watch her all the time. We were in Kentucky, we were in Michigan, and she used to call me baby cakes. I don't know why, but she said she would go out and play and she'd lose. She was losing to everybody, but she was determined to stick to her style of play, which was serve and volley. And she used to say to me, she said, baby cake, someday I'm going to be one of the greatest players that ever lived. And I really felt that it was like a Joan of Arc. I thought she is. And then we just kept running into each other. We played the junior circuit. I played the future circuit. Then I got into the U.S. Open at 16, and then I got injured. And
I read that. Wow.
Yeah, which was. And
so
it was
you mean the main draw, the main event?
And it was at Forest Hill. It was at Forest Hill, so it was on grass, and grass is my best surface because I'm a serve and volley player. And then I got hurt so bad, I sprained an ankle that was almost like breaking an ankle and couldn't play. Wow. But then I kept running into Billie Jean. We both worked for Slazenger for a while. We both worked for another racket company. And then Rafa had me out, and she was there training Megan. And she remembers me. She always asks about my 2 kids. I have 2 boys. But I'm a fan of Billie Jean, for sure.
Tell me about your kids, your boys.
I have an older son, Scott, who dropped in on me here. I haven't seen him in 4 years because of COVID and everything. And he's an Army guy. He's been in Afghanistan and Kosovo, and I'm really proud of him. And my younger son is Will, and he's in Boston, and he's a principal in a company in Berkeley. He has a master's in journalism. So I have 2 really wonderful boys. They're great. And I have 2 grandchildren. I have a grandchild that's 6 and one that's 8. And Maddie's a pistol. She's the girl. I think she's going to end up being a real jock. And Jack's a great athlete. So I'm very blessed with the boys that I have. They're great.
I hope they can watch this interview later.
Well, my son is here today. He's actually going to move near me, and he's on a class right now, but he'll watch it for sure. Perfect. Yeah, they grew up knowing about the Williams girls, and you know, they both were on a tennis court with me. I mean, you know, I raised them. I got sole custody of my kids, so I raised them all by myself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Telly, I learned that it's amazing. You went to Denison University in Ohio.
Yep.
Graduated and then Pan American stewardess. So you were flying. You were in the air.
Well, I'll tell you.
How was it like? Sorry. How was it like? How often? First of all, how often you fly nowadays?
Well, only because of COVID, not a law. But the reason I got the job at Pan Am is I wanted to be a writer. Oh. And I was a writing minor in college, and I got a job with Sports Illustrated. I actually interviewed with a guy named Frank DeFord, who has passed away, but he used to be on television. And so I'm great. I get back, and one of the girls at school was crying because she got turned down by Pan Am. And I said, you know, what's the big deal? It's kind of a waitress in the sky. And she said, you're not pretty enough. And I said, you want to...
Really?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And I said, you want to bet? And she said, yeah. So I flew to New York, and I went to Sports Illustrated and to talk to them. And then I went out, and Pan Am hired me on the spot. And so I gave up the writing career in New York, to be a stewardess. And I can tell you, Danny, it was one of the best experiences of my life because my best friend also flew. She was my college roommate, and we were 22 years old, and we went everywhere in the world. I mean, and I spoke French, and so I could hop on a plane and fly home, or I could go to Mazatlan if I wanted to. And the job back then was classy. Pan Am was a really classy airline.
And when you're flying right now and you see the flight attendants, how do you rate them right now nowadays? Quality wise in general.
Well, I always go back and we talk, and they're great girls, but it's a different business now. It's like a bus. It's a bus service now.
Why? Why?
There just isn't the service. Like, we were trained like chefs. I mean, we cooked full meals. We served them in the aisle, and these poor girls are serving peanuts.
Yes.
But the girls are still the same. They're really wonderful, but they say, God, it must have been great to fly for an airline like Pan Am because it was really classy. It was amazing.
Yeah, going to the airport. I remember when I was a kid, going to the airport was like going to a theater.
Exactly.
You were dressing, accordingly dressed.
Yeah, and everybody was kind of dressed up. And I flew to the Orient, so we flew a lot to Vietnam. I got married. I met my husband on a blind date while I was flying and got married. And then I saw him in Vietnam. I saw him in Misawa, Japan. I saw him in Hong Kong. So I was flying to the war zones as well.
Wow.
Which was an incredible experience, And the girls were great. They were from the Swedish girls were great. And it was just, and I've always said to my kids, everybody thought that was kind of an empty job. But I said, do something that really has no agenda, that you just really want to do. And I've traveled the world at 22 years old. It was great.
Wow. And Sally, how was it? Any memories of something? Any difficult situation when you were flying? Any emergency? Any something that you can?
Emergencies all the time. We'd fly through a typhoon and drop 10,000 feet and end up in the hat rack. But the most moving thing is we used to fly into Vietnam, and the guys that we put on the ground were about my age, 19, 20 at the time. And I remember two things on that flight. One is that I went back to the bathroom, and this guy had locked himself in the bathroom, and he begged me not to put him on the ground. He said, I can't go back there. And I said, I have to let you off the plane. He was so terrified to go back to the war zone. And then the other thing is, we always searched the galleys, and the guys that came on to clean the planes, one guy left a bomb in the front of the galley. Yeah, and I found it, and guys came up and took it and didn't make a big deal. Guys waited at the base of the stairs with machine guns. I mean, we were in a war zone. It was incredible. Yeah.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah.
Sally, and then how many years you were in Pan Am?
I flew 3 years. I married my husband. I met my husband in the first year, and then he went to Vietnam. And so I flew another year. But back then, you could only fly if you were married, if your husband was in the war. And so when he came back, I flew for 3 years. We moved to England. His last end of his tour is we lived in England for 5 years. And then my Pan Am career was done. And then I got married and had kids and did all the thing you do like that. So it was.
Yeah. Okay. What? So, and then I can read you went to law school, right? I mean.
Well, sadly, my marriage ended after 14 or 15 years. And I had sole custody of 2 little kids. And I thought, what am I going to do? I don't, I have a college degree, but I've never really done anything. And I think I was at that time 34. And so I went and worked at Aetna as a paralegal. And I ended up working for all 5 lawyers. And about a year later, they came to me and said, you should go to law school. You're doing our work and you're getting paid a third of it. So I decided I would go to law school. It was about the time of the O.J. Simpson trial, and I was really taken with that whole thing. But I wanted to be a sports lawyer, and the guy that wrote the book on sports law was at Lewis and Clark in Oregon. So that's how I ended up in Oregon. Because he wrote the book.
You're in Oregon right now, right?
I'm in Bend. Went to school in Portland, but I ended up there because he had written the book on sports law.
Yeah. Okay. great. And tell me, take me to I'm waiting to know. I'm so excited to listen about your um, relationship, or whatever you call, with Mr. Richard Williams. Because you know what? The movie, I don't know if you watch it or not. The movie is now, since they've been released, you know, among the tennis world, like, wow, King Richard, everybody talking about my students. Daniel, have you watched the movie? I watched it 2 times.
Oh, wow.
Sally.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I mean, I trust. I mean, it's just I'm a tennis coach. I can't say, I have no idea. I never met them. Anyways, tell us about your experience with the Williams family, please.
Well, how we met Richard was Richard called our law firm and he said, I've just made the next 2 great tennis players. And so he, and the guy that I worked with didn't know anything about it. So he brought me into the room and so he said, I want you to meet them. They're going to be the next 2 greatest tennis players. So we flew to Compton and Richard picked us up in a Volkswagen bus with no floor, so that when you drove, you saw the road. You literally had straddled your feet around a hole in the floor on the way to the courts. And we got to the courts, and it was, there wasn't a white woman within 100 miles, I can tell you. It was all gangs, and we got out of the bus, and they all came around, and then we got on the court. And the guy that I was with didn't know anything about tennis at all. So I get up to the net, and Venus is like 11 and Serena's 9. And Serena's like this little tiny person, you know, but fit, really fit, you know. And I said to him, is she on something? He said, no, she was just born that way. That's the way she was just muscular. So I get up to the net and I think, well, I'm going to go easy on her, right? I'm at the net and I'm going to just be gentle with her. And the ball goes by me like a rocket and lands in. And I thought, well, that can't be possible. So the next ball goes by me and lands like a rocket, lands in. And I hit a few volleys and I turned to Kevin and I said, these are the next 2 greatest, not tennis players, athletes in the world after 10 minutes. And Richard said, you want to play a set? Unfortunately, it was getting dark because otherwise they would have beaten me, I'm sure. But as soon as I saw them play, I thought, this is it. 10 minutes. Yeah.
So I don't want to go through anything you don't want to talk about it. Please feel free to say that.
No. So we,
but why you're not? Sorry, but I haven't seen. I watched the movie 2 times, and I didn't see you. I mean, portrayed by somebody else. You know, so.
Well, the only thing I can say about that, Danny, is I don't think Kevin was in it either, and Richard may have chosen to not want his lawyer in there because we have certain restrictions about things we can share, and because neither one of us were in there. I literally was with Richard for 3.5 years. I would fly to him every month. And I was with him 24/7 all the time. We went to Dare Not to Do Drugs, a Nancy Reagan event. He asked me to pick the coach that he would have. We interviewed 3 coaches. One was Dennis Ralston, who wasn't interested. The other guy was out of the Northwest, and then there was Rick. And I really liked Rick. And so I made a movie to show him why he should pick Rick. I actually made a film. And I showed, you know, I knew Rick was technique-wise incredible, but I knew how dedicated he would be. He was really into fitness, which is a big thing for me. And so Richard said, well, whoever you pick, I'll pick. And I picked Rick.
Wow.
Yeah. And Rick is I don't think he ever got the credit he deserved for what he did, because the strokes they have are his. He's that incredible. And, you know, I'd go, and Rick had a place cordoned off, and we'd entertain sponsors, and, you know, and I would help. I was making a big deal for Richard at the time. And I took Richard to the top racket designer at the time was a guy named Warren Bosworth. And Warren used to go out and do racket tests for all the players for tons of money, like Becker and all those guys. And he did it for free for me. And we went down and we did a racket test, you know, for both the girls. So Richard glommed onto me because of my connections in tennis. I had the validation that I was a player. and I liked him. I mean, we got along great. We played tennis together. We played basketball. We ran. We were pals. Yeah.
And in the movie, if you watch the movie, Sally, the girls looks always happy, upbeat, you know, having a great family relationship. with mom, dad, looked like a happy family. Uh, I mean, with a lot of financial, issues, of course. But uh, how much you can tell us about what are you seeing? That was that happiness around all the time.
I wouldn't say that, but I think the girls adored him. And
Okay.
we had a motor home that Rick bought. And um, what's my guy doing there? Are you okay? It's my dog.
Oh, okay.
And the girls would come in and they adored their father. I mean, there's no question. Brandy, I used to run with, Oracine, her name was Brandy. I used to run with her every morning. She was not very involved when I was in the picture. It was just Richard and me. And, Richard used to pick me up at the airport, have me be dressed in tennis and take me from the plane to the courts. We played in thunderstorms. We played in lightning storms.
Oh,
He used to take me out on the golf course to see how brave I was. And we drive around on a golf course in a lightning storm in Florida. That's the kind of crazy stuff he used to do. Or he'd call me at 3 a.m. and say, I need to talk to you. But the girls, that they adored him, and he was there to. The thing about Richard that I look back on is that my children are about the same age as his kids. And he did some things that I would never have done with my children. But as I look back, it was almost genius what Richard was doing, because he was on a mission and he didn't care how he got it done to make those girls successful. And my involvement was that I got so taken with the idea of helping 2 young little girls be successful. I didn't even think about money. I just thought I would love to be part of making, because these kids were terrific little kids. I mean, they were fun. Cute story about Serena that I'll tell you is Serena was practicing with a 25-year-old guy, and they were hitting cross courts and down the lines like you always do. And all of a sudden, this guy hits a cross court. She runs and hits it down the line, runs off the court, drops the racket, does a somersault. No, excuse me, a cartwheel, and then runs back on the court and passes the guy at the net. And I turned to Brandy and I said, "That's unbelievable." I mean,
how old Serena was?
9.
9 years old, Serena. Wow.
9. And we would play at the net. I would play on with them, and at that age. And she had the quickest hands I've ever seen, and soft hands.
But the movie, sorry, Sally, the movie it shows us more about Venus. Venus is in the first, place, and then Serena is like Richard was obsessed. Luke seems to be about Venus first.
I don't know about that. I mean, I think they were so different. Venus was kind of quiet and gentle, and Serena was bombastic. Richard even decided, he used to say Venus is Wimbledon and Serena is the U.S. Open in their personalities. I know that she was. I felt for a while he asked me many times, do you think they love tennis? I said, I don't think Venus loves tennis. I mean, she's awesome. She's incredible. Whereas Serena was all in. Little kid and amazing and fun. Just fun all the time. But Venus had other things she thought she might want to do. And I said to him one time, you need to go. And he one time went away and took her to a little lake and talked to her about it, because she wasn't as into it as Serena was. And he used to say in front of people that which bothered me sometimes, he would turn to people and say in front of Venus, Serena's going to be much better than Venus. And I would pull him aside and say, don't do that. Don't do that. Because Venus would look crestfallen. She'd look, and it wasn't that he favored them, but he was being honest. I mean, Rick said the same thing. Everybody knew Serena was more athletic, but Venus was, I don't know, Venus was Wimbledon, that's for sure. Kind of elegant and sweet. Fighter, though, incredible competitor. I mean, both of them. And Serena was just all over the place. She was just going
amazing, right? And Sally, when they succeeded, when you saw them in TV succeeding, lifting trophies, I bet didn't surprise you, right?
No, not at all. I knew what was going to happen there. And I as they say, when I look back on it, my involvement was he wanted me at one point to market them because I was a woman and I was a mom, and and I was the only woman in the deal. Everybody else was a man, and I was the only white woman in the deal. I mean, everybody else was black, and he just liked that. And then, of course, there were reasons why I left that not worthy of discussing. But No, that I just, you knew, Rick said something on your interview that was really wonderful about Rick, is Venus had this open stance backhand that you probably would think is not as conventional.
Yeah.
But what Rick's ability was to take, he saw that as take the player that has some gifts and then don't try to change those gifts. And the way she hit that backhand, when she stepped open stance, you never knew where it was going to go. So that was what I liked about Rick, is that he saw he had this kind of nugget of success. He didn't try to make them him. And that's what I was amazed with how they did things. I mean, when Venus hit that open stance backhand one day, I said, wow, does she ever take the crossover step? And he said, she doesn't need to. And that's what was so extraordinary about Rick, is that he was willing to let that happen because he knew he didn't try to force his technique, although he has great technique. And then the other thing is, of course, Serena had an incredible serve. I mean, we all knew very young that that was going to be the weapon for her. And it was. It is.
Yeah. And Sally, I read that you also represented women basketball players, baseball players, football players. So you've been around sports your whole life.
Well, I have two brothers, but I was the son my father never had. I was a tomboy. I played with the boys. I wasn't one of the girls. And so I was very comfortable representing male athletes, and they're very comfortable with me. I was always one of the guys. I love baseball. I used to go to Vero Beach and watch Darryl Strawberry hit dingers over the back fence with the guys. And yeah, I became a sports lawyer because I had gotten divorced. I figured I better hit the ground running. And I'm very comfortable in the sports world. And they sense that I'm one of them because I'm an athlete. So
excellent. Sally, how do you do? I'm wondering, I'm curious, this is why I do interviews. How do you start a relationship with the athlete? I mean, who is calling you? And exactly what do you do once you get, the job? What is exactly your job?
Well, there's two ways to do it. If a blue chipper like Venus calls, you're golden because you don't have to do anything. You just take the call. But in basketball, this woman and I in our firm, we would go to the Final Four. We would go to visit the coaches. I was I had good relationships with Tara Vandiver at Stanford. Pat Summitt, who sadly passed away from Alzheimer, I had a very close relationship with her. And I represented Michelle Marciniak, who was the most valuable player in the Final Four. You had to go and kind of get in front of them and prove your worth to them. And they would interview you and they would say, why should I let my player be with you? And I did very well with that because I was sincere. And like, I'll tell you a great story. Jennifer Azzi was the #1 basketball player in the world in 1990. And we went down to get Jennifer. And Jennifer walks through the door and I'm there in my black suit, my high heels, and Jennifer looks at me like I'm chopped liver, okay? Because IMG and everybody was going to go with her. So Tara says to me, Katie hadn't showed up. She says, well, you're not going to get her because you're nobody. That's what Tara said to me. And I said to her, okay, what do I have to do? And she said, if you take good care of Katie, I will send my players to you. And I had Katie for 10 years. And Katie Stedding had the most three-pointers in the Final Four. They won the national championship that year. But the coaches knew that I was in it I took care of Katie in a way that I was at every surgery she had. When she had knee surgery, she'd come out of surgery, there I'd be. She was in Japan and there was some guy outside her hotel exposing himself. And I called the sponsor and said, if that guy's not out of there in 5 minutes, she comes home. And I took care of him. And that was always my plan. It was very long-term for me. I helped Katie start a basketball academy. I asked Katie what she wanted to do in the next 5 years. She said, I want to have a basketball academy. I set it up for her. I hired the people for her. I was in it for more than just the moment. I was going to be there at the end of their career and beyond, because that's just the way I wanted to do the work. Okay. So I started to get a reputation and that's what athletes want. They want somebody that's not just there when the ink dries and they get hurt, you go away. They want somebody there that's going to be there for them. And so I think eventually the word gets out.
And Sally, are you still owner and president of Spectrum Sports and Entertainment? Or?
No, Spectrum Sports I had for 5 years. It was representing athletes. I had basketball players. I ran high-end baseball camps and soccer camps. I had a wonderful partner that he was a millionaire, and he ended up being a partner of mine. His name was Skip Rowley. And I did that, just because I had left my law firm. And now was out on my own. And why I did that, to be honest with you, Danny, is that I got tired of people telling me that I couldn't go to my kids' soccer games. So now I was president of a company that I could go wherever I wanted to. So I started running my own business so I could be there for my kids. That's why I did it.
Fantastic. And you said you have 2 grandkids?
2 grown kids, boys.
How old are they?
Scotty, I think, is 45, and 46, and Will is 42. Yeah.
Okay.
And Will was Scotty is a good athlete too, but Will was an incredible baseball player. And I could have gotten him drafted, but he decided he wanted to be a writer. The funny story about Will, it was great, is here I was connected with Billie Jean. I was very friendly with Warren Bosworth, who managed Yvonne Lendl. So Will could have trained with any of these people. So at 10 years old, he comes to me and says, "Do you mind if I don't like tennis?" And I said, "No." And he says, "I like baseball." And so we played baseball. And he turned out to be extraordinary. So it's kind of, when your kid wants to do something, try not to impose upon them what you want to do. Because by him going into baseball, he opened up a whole other world to me that was fabulous. And that was baseball, which I love. I'm a big baseball person now. So.
Well, and also, I know you are a photographer, right? You're a professional photographer. Ah.
I did that.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I did that when I was married, and then I did sports photography, and now with digital work. I presently work at Edward Jones, and the reason I do that, I'll tell you, it ties in with this. When I was representing athletes, I felt that I let them down because I could do my job, but I couldn't help them manage their money because there was a conflict of interest. And a lot of athletes lose their money because they don't have somebody helping them with their money. And so when I got kind of away from representing athletes and I got into teaching what I was doing in a curriculum, I went to the guy that manages my money and I said, for my last job, I want to find financial people to represent athletes that are good people. And he said, "Well, you should take this job at Edward Jones." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you'll learn about money." And I've been with him now, I'm into my 4th year, and I have learned about money, everything, stocks and bonds. And I picked the guy that I'm working with. I decided I wanted to help somebody become successful. So I found this guy, Austin Outerkirk, and he wanted to get into the athletic world because he was an athlete at the University of Oregon. And so we have a baseball player now. We're working with Rafa now, which is wonderful. But basically I said, I will make you successful, because that's the last job I wanted to have. And we're really doing very well. So I got into it because of, when I was doing the legal work, I was good at that. But the money thing is the cornerstone of success for an athlete, because if you can get to an athlete when they're young and don't have a lot of money, you establish some habits so that they don't have to play injured, so they don't have to play scared. You teach them how to plan. And that's what we're doing. We're going after we're not going after blue chippers. We're going after, starting out baseball players, young tennis players, so that if they're in a situation where they're hurt, they don't have to play. And a lot of athletes play hurt, or, because they worry about money. And so I'm feeling that this is it's going to fulfill my career. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to finish my career feeling I had done everything I possibly could for an athlete. And that's kind of why I got into what I'm doing now.
Fantastic. And to finish this wonderful interview, Sally, I'm having an amazing time. I hope you feel comfortable. Let me ask you this. I interviewed one of the most prestigious sports psychologists in South America. And he told me this. I want to hear from you, your opinion. Kids starts by playing, having fun. Then becomes, in so many cases, a sport. Then later on, a business. Very interesting, sort of a sequence. And so start as a game, just fun, sport, serious, and then business. And in some cases, dirty business. What is your take about it? You played tennis since you were 7 years old, 8 years old. You love sports. Are you agree with that?
Yeah, I had strong feelings about that with Richard too. Just the fact that my son, if I'd said, no, you can't play baseball, you're going to play tennis, that would have been the wrong thing to do because he didn't want to play tennis. And I think the story I think I told you is that Richard and I were at Hilton Head, and Jennifer Capriati was on the court with Sabatini playing doubles. And Jennifer was 16. And I knew Jennifer pretty well because we'd seen her at the Dare Not to Do Drugs, a tournament with Nancy Reagan. And her parents had quit their jobs. Her mom had been a Pan Am stewardess, and her father, I don't know what he did. And they had a Jag in the parking lot, Jaguar, and she had these jewels. And I said to Richard, you see that little girl down there? She's paying her parents' bills. And Richard looked at me, and I said, and that's not right. I said, she's 16 years old, and she wanted to have a life. She wanted to go to proms, and she wanted to have boyfriends, and pretty normal kind of thing. And I said, and that's tragic because she had an incident where they wanted her to go do an exhibition in Japan and you go to Japan and you play like at midnight in an empty stadium for $50,000. And she wanted to go to her prom, and they wouldn't let her go. And that really wrecked Jennifer. It really did, because she finally acted out to get help because she didn't want to do that. And Jennifer was an extraordinary tennis player. I mean, Jennifer could hit the ball, when most people would expect Jennifer to be hitting cross court on the run, she'd be taking it down the line. That's how strong she was. Yeah, so yeah. I'm all for the fact you've got to listen to what your kid wants to do. You do. If Venus had said, I don't want to do this, I don't know what Richard would have done. I don't know. She never did say that, but, because you don't want your kid to be living your life, or you don't want to live through your child. That's not fair. And so I'm a real believer that if it becomes a grind, or you're paying your parents' bills, or you have to do things where you can't have, Venus and Serena, they didn't go on dates. They didn't go to proms. If you knew how hard those kids worked, we worked 6 days a week, 3 surfaces, clay, hard court, and grass every day. And the only day we took off was Sunday because they were Jehovah's Witnesses. That's all they did. So now when you see them wealthy and successful, they gave up a lot. They did. I don't say they're not happy, but I don't think a lot of people don't realize. Recently I was on I do this thing called Clubhouse, and people were talking about when Osaka decided that she had it for a while. And everybody was saying, oh, she's rich. She's just playing games. She's just doing that. And I got fed up, and I said, no, she was born in a Japanese family, and suddenly she went from 0 to $52 million is her worth. And she's 23. She hasn't got a clue what's going on. And now everybody wants a piece of her, and nobody wants to be doing stuff with her. And she's a great kid. But she didn't have people around her that understood that she really wanted to have a little bit of a normal life. And that's why she walked away. And everybody was criticizing her. She's a prima donna, she's rich. No, she's 23. How many 23-year-olds go from 0 to 52 million in 2 years? And that changes everything. Everybody wants it's happening to Raducanu now. Everybody wants a piece of her. And you'd be surprised how that changes these kids, because they're often playing in a tournament in Turkey, where nobody's there. It's not the US Open all the time. That's what they're doing. And the bottom line is, I can honestly tell you, I think these kids need a mental health person on their team. I think they've got to have people that can help them. And that's
fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Sally, to wrap up this wonderful time, and thank you once again for accepting. It was an honor having you.
Well, I love what you're doing. I've looked at all your interviews.
Thanks.
I think Rafa, I even listened to Rafa and you were speaking Spanish.
We did.
Because I can tell, I love Rafa because he's so enthusiastic, and he's been this way his whole life. He's never changed. He's at 60 miles an hour all the time. Yeah. But he's a wonderful, sincere person. And I could tell your relationships. I just listened to it and I didn't even know what you were saying. That's how much I like that. So.
But you have few in English, so you can still watch. Sally, last one, and let you go, and I have to go to teach tennis. Is COVID changing the world or not?
Yes, the world has changed. Yes. The world has become less kind. The world has become less kind. I mean, I am a person that, I have a son that was on the train in Portland, and the girl got hurt, and he took her off the train, and he fixed her knee, and he ran to his car, and then he got a ticket for her, and he sent her home. People are not doing those things anymore. Everybody is so fed up that it's just not as kind a world. And I'm a person that, I told you at the end of my piece to you, that all my life I've wanted to help people realize their dream. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing the financial thing, is I want to find athletes that I can help so they don't have to worry. Because I know what it's like to play, grind it out. It's, you can see the 4 majors, but those tournaments they play far away, that's not fun. So I think COVID has changed. The empathy has disappeared. And I think it's, people are, they've been locked up and they're scared, and new variants keep coming in. And I think it's a less kind world. And it makes me sad, because I'm a really giving person, and I help people whenever I can. And I feel it's just, people don't seem to care. And I think that they're lost, and they don't, there's so much going on, and the whole political scene has changed since, the last administration, and I'm not a political person. I'm not a Democrat or Republican, but it's just changed in where your representation doesn't seem to be representing us. They seem to be doing what they want to do. So I hope it gets better. I really do.
Okay, Sally, fantastic ending. Thank you very, very much. I hope we will continue in touch.
Well, I told you I'm writing a book. So when that book comes out, I want to get back and talk with you.
I will love it. I will love it. And blessings to you, your family. Stay healthy, stay well. Happy holidays, and enjoy your son.
I will.
And I'm going to upload it in the next couple hours in my YouTube channel. So it's going to be there.
And I'll follow you. So keep sending me who you're interviewing, because I am enjoying who you're interviewing.
And I love it. I had an amazing time. From my heart, thank you very much.
Thank you too. Have a good day.
Thank you, Sally. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.